My name is Vexian, and I have over 2.5 billion long-form views under my belt. My current client portfolio does roughly 100 million views a month, and I'm going to be discussing a topic that has helped me get all those views, something that you can definitely learn of, and that is the art of YouTube. Now, I talk about the game of YouTube a lot, and this is not that. This is the actual art of YouTube, right? So what is the art of YouTube? Okay, to understand the art of YouTube, we can talk about what YouTube is, right? So YouTube is the democratization of content. In essence, from that democratization of content, you have attention markets, right? Attention markets pop up. They talk about things, interest, asymmetry, etc., whatnot, right? So, with that being said, and what YouTube is that YouTube functionally can serve as a few things, right? One thing, it can be a sales funnel to a sales funnel to your page, right? In that case, it's like a business focus, right? It's kind of like a stock market in terms of like revenue. Like you put views out, you get like kind of organic growth. Another thing is that I find that I quite like a lot is that YouTube is also an art form, right? So I've gotten okay at YouTube strategy. I do okay for myself. I get my clients some okay results sometimes, pretty decent actually, if I say so myself. And it's helped me become the fourth highest rated strategist on YouTube jobs, and it's cool. I'm ahead of people like Patty Galloway and whatnot, right? So take that with a grain of salt. YouTube jobs is not the end all be all, but it's an interesting marker nonetheless. So that being said, back to the art of YouTube, the way I'm able to kind of get super ahead on YouTube and the way that I enjoy kind of like, consuming YouTube. And one of the things that might help you is that I consume a lot of art, right? Outside of YouTube. And I use that to influence my decision-making when it comes to YouTube, right? Because at the end of the day, one of my kind of like core axioms on YouTube is that people just want to be entertained, right? They just want to like forget about the world. They want to have it melt away. And one of the best ways to figure that out is what does that in the real world? What is the real world equivalency or parallel, right? So things like music. People really enjoy music, right? That is an art form that people enjoy to pass the time, to make shit less ass. I guess you could say. Also, they enjoy it, right? It kind of fills the void in some senses. It's also entertaining, right? Depending on like the mood, etc. Right? So that is an art form, right? How can I interpret that, or how can I incorporate that into YouTube? Maybe that is backing tracks for videos. Maybe it's like certain things that you do. Maybe it's like certain sayings or phrases or whatnot, right? And how you can like tie things in together when it comes to script writing, right? In terms of lyrics and music, right? Another thing that I do is I read a decent amount, mostly manga because I am a nerd, right? I don't read books. I actually do have a decent amount. I've read back. I used to be a voracious reader, not so much anymore. But because of that, I can use those storytelling devices in these books that I read, or in this like manga I read, or whatever it may be, and I can apply that as an art form to YouTube, which in itself is an art form because it's meant to keep your attention, right? And these things are also meant to keep your attention. So there are things that work there that can work on YouTube, and you can apply that in an artistic standpoint. One of the things that I do is obviously we have the 1 of 10 podcast. I don't know if it'll show up. I can only hope it does. And on the 1 of 10 podcast, we've interviewed a lot of YouTubers. You should go check the 1 of 10 podcast out. And one of the things that has come up recently, not in the released episodes, but maybe you can watch those and find out yourself, is that one of the things that's come up is that a lot of these guys are running like billion view channels and brands, like more views than even me and better than even I am. Is they all talk about their outside influences and how that is contributed to their work, how they attribute that to their current work. And they use outside influences to make better content for like the end product, right? And I was talking to, let's say, this is George Blackman. He's a scriptwriter for some of the biggest educational channels on YouTube, like Ali Abdal. And one of the things that he was talking about in this podcast, and one of the things that I was a really strong takeaway, is that he uses outside influences on storytelling to affect the videos. Same thing with Dobby. Dobby is arguably one of the best strategists when it comes to storytelling and retention because he understands human psychology. And one of the reasons he does that is because he watches and reads and consumes a lot of traditional media that focuses on storytelling. These are going to be your longer movies and your books and your long-form TV series like Game of Thrones, things like that. And you can talk about what to do and what not to do in terms of character development in videos and character interactions in videos, etc. And I'm sure Mr. Beast knows this, and I'm sure Mario Juice knows this, who's one of the best retention strategists. I think the best retention strategist in the world. I'd stake my reputation on the fact that he's that good. And he talks about that where it's like, you just want good storytelling, right? You want to optimize retention through storytelling. And there's other like things like, lighting and whatnot. But that is the artistic side of YouTube, where you take creative influences and you create something new. That is fundamentally what art is, right? It's taking inspiration, or, steal like an artist, right? It's in the saying where you can steal something, but you can add your own twist to it. And that is what YouTube is. YouTube is a new modality of content and entertainment. And one of the ways that you can best go about doing that is finding things in the traditional real world that are parallels in terms of things that capture your attention, what you like, and have that influence your specific videos and creation, right? So I consume a lot of content, whether it be traditional art, paintings, digital art, anime, reading, manga, clothing, etc. Like literally anything, watches and horology and things like that, right? So all those things are artistic to a degree, right? There's some type of craftsmanship in it. And I look at that. I'm like, how can I apply that to this video? How can I make what I feel when I consume a piece of art that I really enjoy, whether it be like an actual physical media, physical piece of art, or a digital medium of art, whether that be a still picture or a movie, etc. How can I have the feeling that I'm like, oh, this is fucking awesome, or this is sick, or I have, a great joy when seeing this? How can I apply that to YouTube, right? What storytelling devices and components can I use? What things that, take me kind of out of it? What things that are like, value, I guess you say, or value adjacent, like how can I go about doing it, right? So that is something that I thought I'd talk about in terms of the artistic standpoint of YouTube. It's why you see a renaissance of the authenticity creators right now, is because from an artistic standpoint, that's what kind of the market is it's what they're leaning into. There'll be an overcorrection, or it'll kind of reach an equilibrium. But the artistic side of YouTube is as important as the game of YouTube, which is the businessification of YouTube, in terms of like, let's say, how do I make this money? How do I optimize the shit out of this? How do I get more views? All of that works hand in hand with the art of YouTube, and you get the YouTube ecosystem, right? What YouTube is. It's a intersection between business and art, one for one in the most true form, where you can make a shit ton of money off YouTube. If you're an artist, you can make a shit ton of money as well. You can also have a platform to grow your channels, to create content and things like this. And it's one of those things which is, I think, is kind of the most beautiful aspect of part of YouTube and the YouTube ecosystem, which I don't really even know if it'll ever be replicated to any degree, right? Like everything else is just kind of a copy of it, because it democratized everything, right? It's kind of, in my opinion, and this might sound insane, it's probably most akin to the, I believe it's the Gutenberg printing press, where it democratized the distribution of information through writing. Eventually, yeah, you had to be like learned enough to understand and read writing, but it democratized and lowered the barrier of entry to creating content, which is why you got some of the best novels ever written, because of the Gutenberg printing press and the printing process, right? And my assumption is the way that we look at the Gutenberg printing press will probably chalk it up to being the internet, unfortunately, in terms of the distribution system and kind of like changing the world. But the actual moving factor that is going to be YouTube as a video hosting and distribution platform between artists and businesses, where businesses are making billions of dollars just off the back end of YouTube and using YouTube as their organic funnel, and other things like art, where there's like a guy who made like it was a coming of age story, like set in like the last weeks of high school, which I thought was fucking awesome. And he got hired to turn that like short film into a full movie. And this is the artistic side of YouTube. And I'm pretty passionate about this, because one of the things that I get asked a lot is, how do I get better at YouTube? And yeah, dude, make the 10,000 videos, study the greats on YouTube. But if you really want to get really, really good at YouTube, and you want to get like that extra 1% better, where you're basically squeezing water out of a rock at that point, is you want to study the greats. I study comedians. I study clothing brands. It's funny enough in terms of like visual design and storytelling and thumbnails. I study painters in terms of like, how composition works, right? I study film directors, right? And why I like watching what they watch, they produce, right? I study actors to an extent in terms of like how they fit into the persona of a character, and how I can maybe better translate that to my clients, and how they can be better on camera, right? And what tones to hit, and how to say certain things, and how to get in the headspace of recording, right? So there's a lot of these things that are a very deep level that people kind of like miss, right? And you will be subtly influenced by art as well. You won't even notice it, but that art that you consume, whether it be actual art, YouTube videos, your favorite YouTuber, etc., which is something that's very common now, or like your favorite like kind of outside influence in terms of an artistic medium, will bleed through the work that you do on YouTube, albeit potentially subtly, right? Let's say it's your cadence or your flow. Like for the longest time, my cadence was like super reminiscent, not anymore, of like Phase Jeff's cadence, because I watched a shit ton of Phase Jeff, and like subconsciously I was copying and was like, oh, this is something I enjoy watching, right? So now it's kind of developed its own thing, but it's an amalgamation of everything that came before, right? So I thought it was kind of interesting. I thought I'd make this video to kind of go about, the art of YouTube, and then I'll have a sister video talking about the game of YouTube and how the game of YouTube works. But if this is something that helped you, let me know. If you want to work with me and, potentially, scale your channel up to the moon. I work with creators over 100,000 subscribers making at least $5,000 a month off YouTube in some way, shape, or form. And if that's something that you are interested in, you can DM me at Twitter at Vexine_. You will find it in the link below on YouTube. And if you're already on Twitter, send me a DM.